Some describe it as a brave new future for policing, technology and artificial intelligence being used to help police officers and their communities. Here to elaborate is Rick Smith. He's the co-founder and CEO of Axon. All right, there was a groundbreaking survey of police officers conducted earlier this year, Rick, and tell us about the results that you guys found out.
Yeah, well, there's basically three results. The first one is super obvious, that this is one of the most difficult times in the history of law enforcement. The tension between police and the public is really at an all-time high. And then the other findings were that police felt they didn't have the right equipment to do the job. A lot of their equipment is really outdated. And third, there aren't enough police officers to go around. So it's a pretty difficult time to be a police officer in America.
Yeah, one of my discussions with a police officer friend of mine was talking about the PAL and the coaching of the kids as when they were youth and stuff, and that's kind of drifted away. Do you think getting the police more involved in the community can kind of help some of this friction?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's, the concept generally they call today is community policing, and the idea is you want to get cops out from behind desks writing reports, which unfortunately sucks up a ton of their time, and you want to get them out in the community where they're building relationships, talking to people. You know, those relationships are really everything. If you've got personal relationships, that's where trust really starts.
Yeah, and we're in Jacksonville here. The body cameras is a big issue, and it's coming up in the next budget. But talk about why the body cameras are helpful and for both the citizens and the officers.
Well, we've seen a huge difference. When police wear body cameras, what it does is it brings the light of transparency into these corners of where law enforcement have to go and sometimes deal with really dangerous situations. And so without them, you know, people are left to their imagination, and they might assume police have done some pretty awful things. When you've got a body camera there, you know the truth of what happened, and it's usually not as bad as what people imagine. In fact, it usually shows police are doing some pretty heroic stuff. So when they're wearing a body camera, in total, we see police complaints drop by 93%. Because you've just got the facts of what happened. And we know that police probably behave a little more carefully, as does the public, when people know they're being recorded.
Absolutely, yeah. The gentleman I've spoken with said it's going to be a huge help once it gets here. But talk about the numbers across the country. How many departments are currently using body camera technology, and how has that changed the outcomes of arrests and prosecutions?
Yeah, so over half of the major cities now have our body cameras, from LA to Washington, D.C., et cetera. And we're seeing not only the drop in complaints, but you're right, prosecutions are really getting streamlined. So domestic violence is a really big one. You know, when you've got a recording of a domestic violence situation, it's a whole lot more likely that people will just plead out rather than gumming up the courts with more litigation. So that also can really streamline things and sort of make sure you really get to justice based on facts rather than, it's really hard to understand what happened from a written report. And as I mentioned, police spend so much of their time, over half their time, writing reports. Once you've got body cameras, well, you now have recordings of these incidents, so you really can lighten a lot of the paperwork because you can always go back to the recording, so you don't have to do as much, you know, as much written reporting.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And let's talk artificial intelligence now. How is that going to increase the amount of time the officers are spending in the community?
Well, the real key to unlocking what's in these videos, you know, you might have an incident that's 2 hours long, and frankly, you know, the prosecutor or the police chief, they aren't going to sit and watch every video. They need to have some way to be able to review this quickly. And there's a whole bunch of interesting things happening with artificial intelligence. You know, if you've ever used an Amazon Alexa where you can now interact using your voice, that same technology will allow us to extract the key parts of a written report right out of the video. So by the time he gets to the police chief's office, he's got a written synopsis, and he can click on certain parts of it and go right to that moment in the video. So it's really all this processing to make this video useful instead of having to go sit and write reports. And if we're successful in doing this, I think we will be, we will effectively triple the American police force, because we'll be cutting away the 2/3 of times that they're sitting behind a desk, and we're going to keep them out on the street for their full shift.
Really appreciate it. Important topic, and thanks for what you guys are doing to spread the word. Thanks, Rick. Have a great day.
All right, thanks. You too. We're excited to be in Jacksonville.
And we'd like to thank Axon for making that segment possible. All right, coming up, she dominated on the basketball court, but she's going to dominate in the comedy club coming up.
That's right. We get to sit down with comedian Karen Mills. She's in Jacksonville playing at the Comedy Zone. We'll talk to her next.
Good stuff. Stick around.